Hello everyone, it's Olga from SEO Sly. This is SEO podcast by SEO Sly. Today I have a very special guest, Doug Cunnington from niche website project. And Doug has been my friend for some time. We have been talking a lot, and I am very, very excited that he is here today with me and will be sharing his knowledge on affiliate SEO, on niche websites, and more. Hi Doug, how are you doing?
Hey, Olga, great. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And your setup looks extremely professional. It looks like more professional than mine,
No,
now that
no,
I'm looking at it.
it's nothing professional, to be honest. This is just my huge screen, and I have a lot of white white stuff on it, and it is kind of
It
making
looks
me
good.
bright because it is like dark outside. So that's basically it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's great. It's actually great here. This is kind of behind the scenes. I don't know how you do your show exactly, but I thought I had a hard drive crash and I lost a
Uh-huh.
bunch of data because I'm a bad person. I didn't back it up properly. But turns out all the data's there. Everything's going to be okay. So great. It's great news right now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so if there are people who don't know you, who haven't been following you, can you like briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Doug Cunnington, and I have a couple podcasts and a YouTube channel. Uh, one of one of the shows is about affiliate marketing and side hustles and SEO. The other one's personal finance and financial independence. Along the way, actually, the first thing that I started doing was blogging. So I have a niche site project, where I actually don't blog too much these days, but there's a lot of things that I shared in the past, and I occasionally do some updates there. So that's kind of my thing right now. And I didn't start in that area though. So I had a corporate job where I did project management in the sort of IT large scale integrations area and software. So that's my history overall, and I put a lot of focus right now in the podcast, actually both of them, and on the YouTube side.
That's great. And can you tell me more about like when you started, what year you started, how did your entire like path to this day looked? I'm very
Sh-
curious to
Sure.
learn. I think it's interesting because I know it. So
Yeah, it was definitely sideways. So a lot of people in our industry, a lot of our peers, Olga, they started in the marketing area, or they knew they wanted to be an entrepreneur and have their own business, and they were always dabbling with side hustles. I had none of that. So I had the corporate job, and I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was trying to go up the corporate ladder, and I was slowly like making my way up. Although I got to be honest, within 2 years, I was already sort of like not enthused about the whole thing. But I was like, okay, I signed up for this thing. I'm just going to keep pushing through. And I slowly like figured out how to, do the politics and like get promoted and, focus on climbing the corporate ladder over like doing the job. So around 2013, I was trying to find a new podcast, and I accidentally found Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn. And it actually sounded kind of scammy, but I thought, I didn't even know you could make money online. I listened to every single episode that he had, probably within like 3 weeks. Like I said, I wasn't really enthusiastic about the job, so I just listened to podcasts all day, and I would just really get obsessed with a certain topic area. And at the time, he was doing a lot of work in like niche sites and affiliate marketing and like AdSense sites and stuff like that. So I was hearing all these like success story interviews, things that Pat Flynn was working on himself. And through the interviews, I started to, jump off to other podcasts and other bloggers, and kind of found my way into Amazon affiliate marketing specifically. And that was through Spencer Hawes over at Niche Pursuits. He was doing a case study, a niche site project is actually what he called it.
uh-huh.
And I got permission from Spencer to use the name, and he was like, "That's cool. You could use it. It actually fits in with the project management that I did with my corporate job." So anyway, 2013, within I would say 6 weeks or so, I was like, "I'm gonna launch a site." So I bought a domain or two, tried to launch a site. I made every mistake that you could make. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was hungry to do more, and I got started with an Amazon site a few months later that actually did
Hmm.
great. So within 6 months, it made like $6,000 in like one single month, and I think over the that 6 month period, it made something like 10 or 12K. I don't remember
Nice.
exactly, but it was enough where I thought that I was a genius, and I was I was going to be able to quit my job. But like all good SEOs, I had like some algorithm issues, manual penalties. It was a little wild west those
Hmm.
days in 2013. Um, and I kept dabbling. I did have like a roller coaster ride of, things would go great and then everything would come crashing down. And I did, I got a taste of like what it was like though. So I kept dabbling and kept trying and trying. And then 2015, I got laid off from my corporate job and decided to, give it a shot and try to do this full time. And I have been for the last, close to 8 years now, 9 years, 8 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Do you remember how many sites have you started?
No, I could make a guess and say, maybe like 25 or 30, something like
Yeah,
that. But I I definitely created more in the beginning, and then as time went on, I tapered it down. The more sites you have, the more stressed out you are.
yeah,
There's always a little bit of overhead for each one, even if you have a team or a system to do it. So as time has gone on, I just want to reduce the number of things I'm working on.
yeah. I think I also like created around 20. Yeah, and so I think maybe two of them were really kind of successful. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And
uh,
there were probably 10 or 15 others where I just bought the domain and like put up
yeah,
the basic website and then never touched it again.
yeah,
So
the same.
yeah. And it's
Yeah,
so common. Like I try to tell people don't do that, but it's like we all do that.
yeah,
It's hard not to.
yeah. Okay, so how do you work now? So you have been like free for 7 years. You've been your own boss, and how do you work now? What's your main focus? It is like podcast. Do you do affiliate sites right now? Do you have ones?
Sure. Yeah, so my main interest is more on the podcast and YouTube side. Like, I mean, really when I step back and look, it's like the commentary around the industry. I have, I think, two sites. One I spend a little time on, one I kind of neglect. And, part of the reason is I did, you know, niche sites and affiliate marketing, SEO related things for probably because I started in 2013. So I probably did a good 7 years of that. Even though I had a full time job, I was putting like a full time effort into the niche sites too. So I had a good 7 years of just like working on it really hard. And I mean, like a lot of people, I get a little bored with things. Now, I do hear people say they have like entrepreneur or like ADD. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't jump around from a bunch of different things, but like I'll go really deep in an area, and at some point I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't enjoy doing the same thing over and over again. I have other friends, they still love doing the keyword research. They still love doing like the same stuff that they were doing 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, I don't find it as enjoyable. So I have moved on to like different things that I find challenging, which one a bigger topic unrelated to SEO is like happiness and like why we're doing all the stuff we're doing. And I don't, I didn't branch out and start working on my own so that I can keep working harder and sit at the
Yeah,
laptop for longer. So as time has gone on and the piece of happiness that I'm alluding to here is like you need to be like sort of constantly challenged. So if you figure out how to do keyword research and you really are good at it, if you keep doing it, it's not challenging anymore. It's
yeah,
just
exactly.
it's not anything new. So like introducing new novel challenges uh, really is interesting. Never anything too crazy, but I keep adding a few different things, a few different layers. Like more recently, I've done some speaking. So that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because that's, being in front of a crowd. It's communication in the same way that I've been doing other stuff. It's just a different format.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I have a few sites, and I'm always I'm always thinking I should probably start another. In fact, a recent interview, someone asked me like, "Oh, would you ever do like a public case study, like build a site and everyone can see?" And those are really popular. That like people have grown their followings huge by doing that, and I just don't know if I would enjoy it that much and like to go through the whole exercise.
Uh-huh.
But that is one thing where I have ideas and I'm like, "Oh, this is a good niche. It's underserved. I know about it. Like I could probably do a really good job there, but I'm not sure like I enjoy just sitting and writing about it like I used to."
Yeah, I get it. And can you disclose what industry is your site?
No,
What
I can't.
topic? No.
No.
Okay.
No. So, and I usually don't share, and some people think I'm uh crazy or like for thinking that something bad could happen, but I did have something bad happen. So a few years
Uh-huh.
ago, someone found one of my sites, and actually there were a few incidences. So one of them, someone
Oh.
did negative SEO. So they 301 redirected hundreds of domains to my
Oh,
domain,
Jesus.
and they
Yeah.
pointed, thousands of links from other sites as well. And Google's pretty smart. They can tell when someone's doing weird stuff and they just don't recognize it. But 300 expired domains pointing all at once, like
Wow.
that's a lot.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of stuff. So the site actually got penalized, and but I was unable to recover it for about 40 days or so. And it
Uh-huh.
cost, over $10,000. So
Oh.
so it was a lot, and it took a lot of time for me to recover the site with a disavow file and, working with a couple consultants who had a little more experience. And yeah, it was a total nightmare. So be, I think if you don't have a podcast and you're not in the industry, you probably don't have to worry about it too much. But because I'm kind of in quotes, a public figure where people are following, and there's a lot of people that have a lot more time than they do sense, and they
Yeah.
will just make it a mission that they want to try to mess up whatever it is I'm doing. So that was one. Another time, someone just copied every single keyword that I had and just like recreated everything I had, which isn't a big deal on a small scale. I had a couple year head start, but over the course of like 2 or 3 years, they siphoned off like 10% of the traffic. Right.
Uh-huh.
So that stuff matters, and it's not worth it to me to share the domains,
Yeah,
basically.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I get
Yeah.
it.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I have a similar take on that. I wouldn't probably want to do a public case study because I also had like not necessarily the best experience recently when my content was stolen. So,
Yeah.
and even recently I again found a bunch of copies of my sites, of my articles. So yeah, so this one site has to be like public because this is like my profile, like in your case. But yeah, I think I'm similar in that respect.
Right. And, another piece of the puzzle here, which I tried to talk about on my show a little bit, is, when you're getting my focus for years, let me back up. So my focus for years was, the niche authority site model. And it still is to a large extent, at least like the topic area which I'm covering. However, the big downside with that business model is you're getting traffic from Google and you're earning from usually Amazon affiliate. Of course, there's ad networks that you can work with as well. But the big issue is the Google traffic side. So, especially this year in 2022, when there's been so many updates and people will lose 80% of their traffic,
Yeah.
do nothing, they'll get it all back a few months later. It shows, like, I would say, incompetency with how they're doing the updates, because obviously if they're like trying to change back whatever they did before, they made a mistake. They're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Either that or it's just wild swings. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that those mistakes cost people sometimes a lot of money, stress, and everything.
Right. And from the very beginning, I started an email list and I had courses. So I like somehow wisely, I'm not sure how, but somehow I was like, oh, I actually do want to make sure I'm never dependent on one thing. So if something dropped off, it wouldn't be great, but it wouldn't be catastrophic.
Hmm.
So at this point, after I spent a lot of time on the niche authority site model, I still earn money there, but I decided I like having the podcast, which is truly independent, like an email list. YouTube is great. It's someone else's platform, but that's always in the back of my mind. Like I have low interest in the social media platforms because those are, even more dependent on the the treadmill of content, the
Yeah.
algorithms. They're based on an ad model. So at some point, back in 2014, people had big Facebook pages and they had
Yeah.
huge reach, and then Facebook decided you could only get in touch with like 10% of your audience
Yeah.
unless you pay for ads. So that stuff will happen on the other platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So, do you have a newsletter for your like niche website project, or for your like affiliate site as well?
Just for niche site project currently, I
Hmm.
have had fairly significant email list on other sites um, in the past, and technically one of the sites that I have now would actually fit pretty well for one demographic of the audience, but I
Hmm.
haven't put any time into it at this point in time. And part of it is just, like I said, I don't want to be too busy. I have a good position where, like, if I don't want to work on something, I could choose not to, even though it could be a good profitable thing. Sometimes having more free time is better than more money.
Yeah, 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 definitely. So I have like recently started to be like fully independent and fully free with no one telling me what to do.
Yeah,
I am blissfully jobless, if I can say
right.
so, and I'm really enjoying that. And but I'm also trying to keep those hours like at some threshold, because yeah, in the last year, 2 years, I was working too much and didn't have time for anything, and now it's changing and it's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, like, when you're starting off, especially, like, you probably should say yes to a lot of things to test things out, and, you know, you probably need the money, right? Like, when I got laid off, I needed the money, so I was like,
Yeah.
"I'll do all sorts of stuff, and I wanna make as much as possible, and I'll work, late at night, I'll wake up really early, I'll do whatever it takes, and, put in more effort than, maybe what I would well, definitely more effort than I would do for a corporate job.
Yeah.
Um, but then at some point, like you maybe can, take your foot off the brake. Now, and that's one of the things that I struggle with. I'm curious with you, Olga, too. So a lot of our peers, right? We're networking, maybe mastermind groups, and some people, actually, a lot of people in our space, it's like they just want to earn more and more forever, right? As much as possible, like whatever it takes. And I find that I don't fit in as well because I'm like, "Oh, I have enough. I'm gonna coast," and I don't have that same drive that they have. So, do you feel that kind of push to, like, keep closing as many deals as possible or do as much as possible?
So I was definitely in that like last year, maybe this year too, because I had a lot of expenses around the house. But now when the things have settled, I like on purpose gave up on many things, and I'm okay with earning half of what I was earning, but like feeling better and doing the things that I actually enjoy. So I don't think I would like to trade this feeling for more money, just to have more money, because I think money makes you happy until you reach some level when your basic like needs are met or some extra needs as well. But after that, I think it's like you're just working yourself
Right.
unnecessarily out.
Yep.
So yeah, and so do you do like any client work or just podcast your sites?
Yep. So no client work technically. I occasionally will do like a coaching consultation kind of thing. I never do implementation, so it's more like strategy and like high level like visionary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I do enjoy doing that. So I had one of those the other day, and it's people often that are in the same place that I was, and they see where I'm at, and it's actually a really smart thing to do to talk to people that are a couple years ahead of you, because then you can find out if they're really happy or not,
Yeah, yeah,
or if they're doing really well but they hate their day-to-day life, which then that's a red flag, right? So even if they're making a lot of money, if they're really unhappy,
yeah.
that's bad. And then I do have courses, so I have students, technically not clients, and to me it's a much different relationship. And I did a little bit of client work right when I got laid off, mainly around link building and guest posting, and that was fine. It was actually extremely profitable. But
Mm-hmm.
when I played out the thought experiment of whether I wanted to do it, I thought, in 18 months, if this works, what does it look like? And it would be a team of maybe 15 to 20 people, maybe three managers, and then me. And then I realized that just recreated an org chart from my old job. So I realized, well, I don't want to do that, and then stop doing any client work. And it's just not my thing. And I mean, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Agencies do stuff, and people need services, so clients are part of that. But for me, the business model is uninteresting, and I hate it. So
Yeah.
I don't work with clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I do work with a few clients, but I'm not like going to scale in any way. I don't want to turn into an agency. I cannot imagine myself like doing that and managing like a team of people.
Right.
But you do have some remote team that helps you, right? With
Yep.
your
So I
podcast,
have
newsletter.
a little bit, yeah. So it's mostly on the podcast side, and technically I have like an executive assistant who's based in the US as well. And
Uh-huh.
then I have a video editor, and she does some podcast editing as well. And she's in Ukraine. And then I just hired in the last couple months a new assistant in Montenegro.
Oh.
And she's great. She's actually a writer. So she started off doing writing, but I know that she can do other stuff. And I know that if someone just writes constantly all the time and editing, it gets a little boring, especially if the topic area isn't very good. So I am getting her to do more like YouTube and podcast admin kind of stuff, or actually,
Uh-huh.
it's production activities. So she won't do any actual editing or anything, but she'll be, working on different pieces, YouTube thumbnails, setting up all the links, and then posting the podcast. So it's really kind of an administrative assistant type role, but it is dedicated in those areas. So it's actually great for her because, she's still doing some writing, and then she's branching out into these like big industries where like
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I'm doing is going to grow. So like from a resume building standpoint, like she'll be able to say, I helped this channel grow from like where it is to where it is
Mm-hmm.
now. And I know how to do like all these things. So
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I still don't have such a person, but yeah, I think I'm going to have one soon, or maybe next year, early next year. I'm still like kind of doing most of the things myself,
yeah. And
but it's kind of yeah. But I'm now like super happy to be doing that because yeah, I'm a free person.
right. Yeah.
Even though I have to do those things, but I'm doing them like for myself, and technically I don't have to do them, so I can stop anytime I think I feel like stopping.
Yep.
So about your channel, how many subscribers do you have now?
I don't pay too much attention. I
Uh-huh.
think about 34 or 35,000 or so,
Yeah,
something
and
like that.
how did you for how long have you been like publishing so regularly? What's your strategy? How long did it take you to grow your channel to this number?
I started probably in late 2016, early 2017, sort of in a more serious way, and then started publishing more regularly. So that is roughly 5 years, if I'm doing the math
Mm-hmm.
right. So about 5 years of like pretty dedicated work. I technically have a few videos out in the 2014 and 15 timeframe, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more like tutorials and videos, but I didn't know what to do like a lot of people. So I would sometimes set up my camera. I figured out that with my old DSLR, like I technically could do like pretty high quality video. I think it was like 720 back then on that camera, but it looked pretty good. I had nice lenses, and I would try to do it, and it was painful to watch. I mean, it was painful to do, and it was painful to watch, and I didn't know how to like. I knew I could edit some, but I was like, I just want to try and do it in one take. And nowadays I can like hit record, talk for 15 minutes in one
Uh-huh.
take with like no major issues, and I could
Uh-huh.
just publish it. Back then, I would struggle to do 3 minutes. It would take me 6 hours. I would like think about what I was going to say and then like mess it up and have to redo it, and then I mean it was a nightmare. So I got serious about it in 2016, and then in 2017, I realized that I was having a hard time editing, and I thought, "Oh, maybe I could take that part out. How can I do that?" So I decided to do live streams every week
Oh.
for a quarter, something like that. And one of my friends who was in a mastermind group, she said that she had a friend who was doing live streams on maybe Facebook or something. And I was like, "Oh, well, I have the YouTube channel, and I'll just do it there." And I don't know, for several of them it was like me, and then maybe one person would come on for like a second or two, and they would drop off. But it eliminated the need for editing, which was the big bottleneck. By the end, maybe
Uh-huh.
10 or 15 people would show up, and actually I still do live streams each week uh, to this day. So that was
Yeah,
a big
and
deal.
so how many episodes, videos do you publish per week right now? And is it like two?
Yeah, I would say like 2 to 3. So technically, um, 2 podcast episodes come out, and I do publish the podcast on YouTube as well, which I could talk some more details about that. But so 2 of those episodes will come out, and then I'll do the live stream, so that kind of counts. And then I haven't gotten my butt in gear recently, but I will be publishing more like tutorial, like the old style videos and like informational videos like I used to. And this is a struggle that I think maybe some people run into. So I covered a lot of topics in general in 2017 to 2019. You can cover a lot of stuff. And I was publishing, twice per week back then too. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of videos out there, and I covered a lot of things. And after you do this for a while, I'm like, I already talked about that. Like, should I talk about it again?
Uh-huh.
People like my audience potentially should have already heard this. But the thing is, people, join the audience every day. People fall off every day, and you don't know what they've heard. So I have neglected, doing these videos, even though people are saying, "Hey, can you do a video on keyword research?" I have like probably 50 videos on keyword research,
Uh-huh.
but people want to see the new fresh one because they think maybe
Yeah.
something dramatic has changed. Um, and then there's some recency bias perhaps, but I do struggle with what I should do should I re-record these videos with a fresh take, even if there's nothing new? And I think I have to do some of those.
Okay, that's interesting. And so you were basically creating new videos, new content. How were you selecting the topics? Were you doing like keyword research to for videos? What was like your selection, your process?
Usually it's based on questions that I get. So actually, if I rewind, a lot of the topics that I covered initially, they were just blog posts that I repurposed or a topic that I already covered in the written form, and then I just move it over to video.
Uh-huh.
And that is what people should probably do, by the way. I mean, you've already done the work. You may as
Yeah.
well
So
put it in a different format. They're completely different audiences. Then when I started the podcast, I actually did the same thing. And I was like, actually, this topic fits. I'll record a podcast about it. If I could use the actual video like format and then just strip the audio out, I would do that. A lot of times that doesn't work exactly, so I would re-record it. But you can repurpose content and no one's going to get upset with you. These are different mediums and different people. And as time went on, because I did have the audience in place for um, the blog, I also had the email list, so I could just see what questions people asked. Further, like you can go and look on YouTube and see comments and what people ask there.
yeah.
As far as keyword research, I would do some keyword research, but in general, on the YouTube side, I haven't found it to be as big of a deal. It is, I mean, if you can identify keywords that people are searching for, fantastic. But I knew um, that some of the topics and questions that people were asking about were so narrow and specific that people probably wouldn't be searching too much. A couple people would, of course, but
Uh-huh.
I knew that the audience would be interested. And that's the cool thing about YouTube is suggested videos will pop up based on the interest of the viewer and what other things they watch and what similar viewers also watch. So there's a great discoverability on the YouTube side that is completely separate from keyword research. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love keyword research, but on YouTube, you don't necessarily have to worry about it as much because it's
Mm-hmm.
title and thumbnail driven in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And regarding your newsletter subscribers, so how big of a list do you have?
It's about 10,000. So,
Wow.
yeah, sadly, well, thanks for that kind reaction. It's probably like everyone's email list is smaller than what they hoped. I do have a very
Mhm.
high open rate, probably around 30%, although these days the open rate metrics they're all messed up because of
Uh-huh.
some of the privacy I guess triggers, or I don't know the right word, but Apple changed how they're sending data back on the mail app. So
Uh-huh.
essentially on Apple devices, iPhones in particular, we may not be getting the right data back on open rates. So click-through rates, like you can
Can I have
tell.
a question? Yeah,
Yeah.
because like recently I was using MailChimp and I had like a quite nice growth. And I moved my subscribers list to Kajabi because I want to have like everything in one place. And in Kajabi, and I had like an open rate around 35 according to MailChimp. And once I moved everything to Kajabi, not only like few people are subscribing, but the open rate according to Kajabi is like 16, maybe 20. And I am kind of confused because I'm not an expert in that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I I'm not sure, especially especially with like the signups. So it could be the double confirmation or lack of double
Mm-hmm.
confirmation. It could be something in the flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the open rates, I moved from Aweber to Kajabi, 3 years ago, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was consistent. Like I had the same open rates when I
Uh-huh.
moved over. So I don't I don't think Kajabi has any issues with deliverability. The one thing that you should check is like the from address, and like if that changed and then people don't recognize the from address or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, they may have to like re-whitelist that
Yeah, that's
email
possible, I
address.
think. Yeah, because it's now coming from Kajabi, and I'm
Right.
still not sure if I should use my own domain or Kajabi's domain. Because what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I went with Kajabi's domain. So
Yeah.
I like, they share some documentation with you
Mm-hmm.
about that, and whatever they said, they convinced me. I was like, "Oh, it's probably fine to use their mail server."
Yeah.
And like I said, it has been fine. People get the emails, but the whole point is the reporting does seem to be a little bit off, and I don't know what to do. And like one thing I did is I emailed all the what were listed as sort of like unengaged subscribers. And I said, if you want to keep getting this, click the button. It looks like maybe you haven't opened an email. And I had a ton of people reply back. And I was like, oh, I know they opened the email. They've replied back. So there's some
Oh,
reporting issue or something like that.
so that's
Um,
that's good news, I think, for me.
Right. So you could be okay, and there's a couple deep in the weed tips that I can give you. A listener actually let me know. She focuses in email marketing, and she
Uh-huh.
said, "Oh, you could do a couple things like send the email to your most engaged people that open the email like every single time, and send it to them first, and then a few hours later, like 3 or 4 hours later, send it to everyone else, and you
Uh-huh.
should get a higher open rate." Now I did that. I didn't really notice anything different too much. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it ended up being the same, but technically Google and Outlook sees more people open that specific email, so when they get into everyone else's inbox, technically they should put it in the inbox more than they put it on promotions or spam or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I
Yeah.
didn't see any different. I tried it maybe for a week or 2 and didn't see any difference.
Okay. Yeah. But still,
Yeah.
still interesting. And how about the podcast? Where do you host podcast? Is it Kajabi as well?
So I'm over at a company called Castos,
Uh-huh.
and I signed up with them originally because they sort of had simplified billing. Now I think, there's a ton of podcast hosts out there, and I'm sure some of them have simplified it, but when I was looking, some of the companies had a limit on maybe the length of the podcast. So they were like, "Oh, you
Uh-huh.
can do 4 hours per month," or the data size of the files. So it was like, "Oh, you can't have more than like 500 megabytes," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to record as long as I want, or if I want to do an extra episode, I don't want me to be limited by like artificial but pretty arbitrary like constraints, right? Because data and bandwidth, it's super cheap now. There's no like whatever 15 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
they should make those rules, but now it's insane how cheap data and bandwidth are. So they should not be, like maybe if you're getting a crazy number of downloads, then they change it. So Castos, I signed up with them, fairly early on, I think, and they had the simplified billing, and basically
Mm-hmm.
it was like unlimited time, unlimited data, and I think there was maybe like some threshold of downloads, and then it took you from like a basic level to like the pro level to enterprise, for example.
Uh-huh.
And if I remember right, it's like under 20,000 downloads a month, and then 50 up to 50,000 downloads a month, and then higher than that. So I go with Castos. They do a good job. Eventually, I like met the founder and I've interviewed him before. So
Oh,
he's a good guy, and I like what they're doing. And they have a different, every company has a little bit of a different take, but
yeah.
it's I think it's a commodity at this point, and there's a lot of companies out there. And I think if you find one that you like, then, stick with it. Um, One thing that I maybe would consider is the companies that allow you to do dynamic ad insertion, and I think there's only a couple of them. So
Uh-huh.
that, if you're going with an ad-based model, then that makes sense because then you can, retroactively have an ad campaign and it'll be inserted into all your old shows, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. And can you share how many downloads per month do you get? Or
Sure. So I think it's about, for the Doug show, it's about 20,000 or so, something
mm,
like that. It goes up and down. So 20,000. And then for my other show, which is called Mile High Fi, it's the personal finance one. I think that is closer to 30 or 35,000 downloads per month,
mm-hmm.
something like that. And I publish 2 shows per week on each one of those.
Okay. So can you tell the audience more about your other show? I
Sure,
think it's
yeah.
quite new from what I remember, right? Relatively.
It is, time flies. So we started it's been a year and a half,
Yeah. So
and
relatively, yeah.
yeah, it's younger,
Yeah, I remember. I remember when you
and
started, yeah.
it is, um I was gonna say we have, like, over 100 episodes at this point. So,
Mm.
like I said, personal finance and financial independence, and that's one of my other interests. So I live in a town called Longmont, and one of my, friends in town here, he retired when he was 43, about 5
Mm.
years ago.
Nice.
And there's a whole community of people that retired early around here. And actually, like, we moved here because it was a good location to where my wife worked. And basically, we moved into this place where a lot of people try to move now because of the community, because there's a lot of people that are, you know, in their 30s or 40s that have retired. And maybe they do something on the side like me, or maybe they keep working. Usually people actually stop working, but in some way they're usually doing a little something. There's very few people that literally are earning no money.
Uh-huh.
Um, but they quit their corporate job and they don't have to work if they don't want to. That's the whole idea. So I got introduced into this community and, kind of knew a couple of the topic areas, and then realized after moving here, like, oh yeah, like we did this after, several years. We hit financial independence and like work is optional at that point. So some of the big names that people may have seen or heard, one is Mr. Money Mustache. So he was on a Tim Ferriss podcast episode, I think in 2017. And I listened to it, and actually, a lot of people heard that episode. It was a very popular one, as far as I know. And I had already heard of Mr. Money Mustache because we read a blog post about investing and then, never paid much attention to it. But that, like, really, I guess that in like national news coverage, like made the fire financial
Uh-huh.
independence retire early become like sort of mainstream and more popular. So it grew a lot. There's a little bit of a lull in interest, but the markets are down right now, at least when we're recording, and there's inflation and blah blah blah. So the markets are tougher and people have less interest. But for the past, basically from like 2010 to 2021, the market grew a ton in just stock market in general. So
Mm-hmm.
so we talk a lot about really post financial independence. So we're talking about what we know and what we're interested in. There's a lot of other shows that talk about like the basic mechanics and like, budgeting and like cutting cost and then investing and some of the basics, but like we're past that and we don't enjoy talking about the other stuff as much. We do. I mean, we understand the concepts, but we're not trying to teach people that stuff because it's been covered elsewhere so well. So we're doing interviews with people that maybe they're about to retire, maybe they just
Uh-huh.
retired, maybe they've been retired for a few years. So it's kind of like an advanced level of the discussion, versus like the very basic ideas.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. And how about your courses? Can you tell me more about your courses? How many do you have? When are they open? Because I think you open a course once a year, right?
Yep. Yep. So I have, I think, 5 courses technically. So,
Uh-huh.
the main flagship course is multi-profit site, and that takes you start to finish from like creating a niche site. So even brainstorming, keyword research, putting the site together, content, writing it, hiring people, doing link building, further promotion, and that sort of
Uh-huh.
thing. So it covers all of that. And then I have a couple smaller courses. I mean, they still have, 3 to 5 units in there with a few lessons, but one's on Haro link building. Another is on what to do basically when your site's stuck, and that is called
Uh-huh.
Site Growth Plan. There's one on productivity, which is sort of a pet interest that I have. And then I feel like there's one other one, but I can't remember right now. So some of the uh, smaller courses that just teach one thing, those are sometimes open for a few months at a time. And then multi-profit site, I open up 4 times a year. So it's a quarterly launch. And I do that for um, partially management of the people going through the course. So it's easier if a handful of people start all at one time, and then I could answer the questions that they have. For support, it's just me. So I don't have
Uh-huh.
like a team or anything. So it's just easier if I can work with a group of people. It's all pre-recorded, but people have questions as they're going through the course material. And then
Uh-huh.
the the other thing is from a marketing standpoint, Scarcity is a really powerful selling tool. So by launching 4 times a year and having like a limited window when you could purchase, people have to make a decision. Either they want the course or they don't. But that is part of it is marketing to do that.
Uh-huh. And how do you promote those courses through your newsletter?
Yep. Yeah. So it's almost exclusively via email. And
Uh-huh.
I have tried to do a little bit more of a, like a launch via YouTube, which is the other big audience area. It usually hasn't taken very well
Uh-huh.
overall, and I think part of it is like in my group of peers, it's almost all like free information. So that audience is great, but like Alex at WP Eagle, he doesn't sell any courses. He makes money from probably YouTube ads. I'm not sure if he's running ads, and then he has affiliate deals. So he can make money by just showing how to do something and say like, oh, use this hosting, use these tools,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
do this stuff. And I'm selling the course and the framework. So it's a different business model than some of our other friends, right? They have content agencies or link building agencies. So again, they could show you how to do all this stuff and say, oh, well, if you want to make it easier, just hire us. So
Uh-huh.
different business models. And, that's one thing to sort of navigate where, I have this intellectual property of the course and the framework and access to me. And then they have their mechanisms, affiliate marketing or maybe an agency. So it's interesting to look at that. But when it comes down to it, like I said, on the YouTube side, I could say, oh, I show you how to do all this stuff, but like potentially, right? They could just go to Alex's channel and then like learn similar stuff and just do it a
Uh-huh.
little bit different and then ask Alex on his, 2 live streams per week and he'll just
Mm-hmm.
answer the question. So
Yeah.
it's totally different. It makes it a little tougher since a lot of the audience does come from a place where like all the information's free. The problem is there's too much stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
So number one, you're distracted. And then, technically, right, if it's not vetted, for example, like Alex's stuff, he's like working on things live. You get to see what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he'll do something that and I'm not picking on Alex specifically, it could be anyone, but if you're watching someone work on a live case study, that's not tested yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they may go a few weeks and then say, oh, actually, that plugin is terrible. I shouldn't use that plugin. And then you have to
Yeah.
go back and change. Or it could be like, this link building company is great. And then the link building company is not great after a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks of experience. So
It turns
that
out, yeah.
yeah, that's the issue with, following along a live case study or, just on YouTube, there's too much. So even if you can get the information, there's no framework around it. It's just a bunch of random stuff constantly being, thrown at you.
Yeah. Okay. Another question: can you like share some beginner tips around affiliate marketing, niche websites? So let's say I heard there is such a thing. I want to get started. What do I do? I buy your course, and what else can I do?
Yeah, sure. I would say find find someone that you trust, and it could be, blog, podcast, YouTube. Find someone that you trust, you like their style, and you can see that they know what they're doing, right? There's different ways to illustrate this. It could be, a case study that they've done. Maybe like for me, one thing that I try to showcase more now is students who have taken my course. So I can tell you
Uh-huh.
what I've done, but it's not as I believe it's not as compelling because I've been doing this for like 10 years now, right? So it's more interesting for someone to see a student who didn't know anything, took the course, and then made it out. So I try to share those kind of
Mhm.
stories. Um, so find someone you trust, follow along with their kind of framework or business model in general. Don't skip around to a bunch of different people. This I've seen this a lot. So
Uh-huh.
if you find 5 different people that are working kind of on the same stuff, these authority niche site kind of business models, you may think it's good. I'm going to get information from all these people as I'm learning. I mean, I kind of did that. But what you might do is accidentally cherry pick stuff from each one of them
Uh-huh.
that just doesn't go together and it doesn't work. So I think you really should like go through a full project cycle following one person's business model. And then after you've done that, then you can go and maybe pick some stuff because you know a few things. But when you don't know anything and you try to pick a bunch of individual strategies, there's a pretty good chance, like, even if they could go together, like, you're going to do it in the wrong order. You're going to make a little mistake, and it's just going to make it that much harder to figure out what you're doing wrong. So find someone, find a business model, go through like one project cycle, and then maybe you can experiment.
Uh-huh.
The other
Okay.
part is mindset, and it's like it's going to take longer than you think. So however long you think it is, it'll take 2 or 3 times as long. It'll take 2 or 3 times as much effort as well. So, like, I try to really convey that in the podcast and YouTube and stuff, but it still surprises me that people think it's gonna be really, really fast. So, if you have a long timeline, a long vision, like, you're gonna be okay. But if you think you're gonna be able to, like, make $1,000 a month in 1 or 2 months from one of these sites, I don't think you can do it. Like you can do it in other business models, but you can't do it via like Google SEO. I don't think. What do you
Yeah.
think? Can someone
Yeah.
kick up a site really quick?
It may happen sometimes that something goes viral, but I would say this is like not, it is rather a huge exception than the rule. Usually, I agree totally that you have to spend some time. For me, it also took at least double the amount of time I expected it would take me. And still, like with everything, I wanted to launch the podcast like half a year ago initially, but
Right.
yeah, it just took longer, and it's like it's totally that. But I think yeah, we just have to like accept that it will take some time, and the same I think with looking at your subscribers. It is. I don't think it is a point in checking your subscribers every day. Oh, I have 10 new, 50 new. You just have to like keep doing what you're doing,
Right.
and yeah, and they will come, hopefully.
Yeah. If you keep doing it, well, and that is one thing that I have learned, at least on the content production side. It might be a little, I mean, it is different if you're looking to get your traffic from organic SEO, but we all have we all have personality. I was just gonna say weird personalities. We all have personalities. They're all a little bit weird. The good part is there's a lot of people in the world, and if you do, keep uh, producing a YouTube video each week or a podcast or whatever, you may have to do a little marketing, but like probably you'll find your audience. They're probably out there, even if you're a little weird and quirky. Not you, Olga, specifically, but a person. Um, and part of it is just like sticking around and like doing it longer than other people.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. And what are some of the maybe more advanced like tips you can share? Maybe one advanced tip when it comes to like this affiliate SEO thing.
Ooh,
Some secret.
yeah. Yeah, actually that's one of the secrets. There's no secrets. There's no real shortcuts. I think
Yeah.
probably with everything. If if someone has a little secret or shortcut, it's probably they were a writer for 10 years. That is actually one of the shortcuts. So I see a high level of success from people that write well and write their own content and take as much time as it needs to take. So that is one of the issues. Again, like there's agencies that are like, oh, we could publish 100 articles a month for you. It'll cost you for sure, but they can do it. They can publish a ton for you, but they're just hiring like random writers that don't know anything about what you're trying to build your site on. So it can be passable, maybe, but if it's something deep in the weeds, they're not going to know. And it's just probably not going to work out as good as you think or whatever they're promising you. And that's the other thing. I mean, the agencies, I have a lot of friends who have agencies, so hopefully
Uh-huh.
they don't get too mad at me. But I say this kind of stuff all the time. It's like asking a barber if you need a haircut. Of course, they're like, yeah, like keep publishing, keep paying $150 per article. Of course, that's what they're going to say. They're earning
Yeah.
money from it. So you have to make sure you understand like what their incentives and motivation is and are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but a little bit on the advanced topic. So one thing that I did learn in my corporate job was like hiring a team and scaling and like training. So that is one area that I'm very good at because I learned like with professionals and I learned from people ahead of me. And I think having very clear expectations on someone's role is very helpful, and having very
Mm-hmm.
clear like job aids. So whatever it is, you'll hear people call them standard operating procedures, SOPs, but essentially it's just like we do this activity this way, and here's all the steps, and this is how everyone does it. And that could be outreach and link building. It could be related to content. It could be related to formatting. And one of the ways that you can have a really tight, very concise, a good job aid, and this is exactly what I've done. You write it out as best you can, but then you have your team, your VAs go through it. They're using it, and then if they ever have a question, they leave a comment in there. So I use Google Docs, and they would
Mm-hmm.
leave a comment, and then I have to figure out how to make it more clear, how to make it more concise and less confusing, whatever it is. And that way, every person that goes through it can leave a comment. So it's in, continuous improvement process. And by the time you have probably, 5 to 10 people go through it, they've asked most of the questions. And then you just have a
Oh.
really good document that has been iterated upon, input from multiple people without having to, think back to the corporate days where we would have like a document review. We'd have like 10
Uh-huh.
people in a room, and then it would take forever to go through because there's people trying to talk and there's politics. But if it's just one person at a time that's actually trying to use the document, they can just leave their comment there, and then you can fix it, and then another person comes through and they won't ask the same question because you fixed it. So that's a really good way to do continuous improvement process with input from multiple people that don't have the same background and like understanding. They're not experts, like they're learning from the document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great tip. Okay. Okay, so Doug, where can people find you? What's the best place to?
Sure. So I would say head over to the podcast platform of your choice, and you can find my affiliate marketing and side hustle show. It's called The Doug Show, on any of those platforms. So check it out if you're listening. If you're over on the YouTube side, you can go over to YouTube. It's the Doug Cunnington channel. So it's just Doug Cunnington. You should be able to find that. If you are interested in the financial independence area, in the personal finance, that's called Mile High Fi, and you could find that again same places, any podcast directory and over on YouTube. If you like the written word, you can go over to nichesiteproject.com and sign up for the email list, and I have like all my templates and systems, and I point you towards the the content that I have out there, as well as anything new that I publish on the niche site project side of the house.
Okay, Doug. So thank you for having time and for spending this hour with me. I learned a lot, even though I've been listening to you for I think 2 years now, probably. I still learned a ton of new things from you. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, so thanks everyone, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.